started. Again, good evening, everybody. My name is Ryan Paget. I am the Assistant Vice President for Enrollment and Student Success here at Northern Kentucky University. And I want to welcome everybody to this evening's program. Again, we want to thank everybody. We know Thursdays, you're heading towards the holiday season. There's lots to do. So to carve out about 30 to 45 minutes with us so that we can provide some hopefully useful information for you and your families, the opportunity to get to do so, we greatly appreciate. I'm actually going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here. And we'll go ahead and get straight into our presentation. I'm going to go ahead and swap these here so you can see. There we go, the presentation itself. So the agenda for today is going to be fairly straightforward. We are going to spend about 20 minutes. I'll do a quick presentation, provide some important information we feel you would need to know right now. And then we will turn it actually over to you then for any questions that you would like to ask, anything, again, points of clarity that we can provide to you. And then we will promptly end at 6:45 this evening, as we have promised. And then what we will do is this is being recorded. And so what we will do is we will then blast this out to everybody who had signed up for today's workshop. If you have to leave or something does come up, please kind of have that comfort in the back of your mind that this is being recorded. You'll be able to view this at a later time. But at the same time as well, if we don't get through all your questions or there are some questions that we may not know the answers to at this time, we will definitely follow back up in that email with those responses so that you leave this meeting either with those questions answered or when we send the recording out, you get those responses. So again, welcome everybody. We're really excited to have you. Again, this is part 2 of our Stronger Together presentation. We held part 1 a little bit earlier in the semester. If you missed part 1, you're not going to feel like it's not like an actual class itself, where if you miss part of the introduction, you don't know what's going on later in the story. This truly is its own separate thing, but we do like to keep these in parts because we will be doing these also through the spring as part of our support to parents and family members so that they have the information they need to best support their student both inside and outside the classroom. So be on the lookout in the spring for parts 3 and 4. So this evening's workshop, it's going to be somewhat similar to what we did last time. We want to really tell you right now what you need to know. What is the important things you need to know right now? Your students are in the middle of spring registration. Many of your students have already registered for spring, but we'll cover a little bit about that there. We'll spend the majority of our time on finals week and how that's coming up very quickly. We'll talk a little bit about winter break and then the prep for the spring semester. And then we're going to also talk a little bit about these next steps. So we talked about what you need to know and then what can you do now. And so again, trying to arm you with as much information as possible to best support your student. And then as I shared, we'll spend a little bit of time in some discussion and Q&A and try to make this as interactive as possible. Even though we can't hear you, the opportunity to interact with you through that chat will be fantastic. So if you attended our first session, these slides are going to look very familiar, but I really do like to kind of start off with these because I think it provides us some context and really why we develop these workshops for parents and family members throughout the semester and throughout the academic year. So we had asked students a few years back, before they had even stepped foot on our college campus here, who do you primarily expect will influence you more academically during your first year? And as you can see, the majority of students said faculty and instructors, and then an equal amount there kind of got to that parents and family members. But they did say before college they were looking to rely a little bit more on their faculty and instructors. What we did was after the first semester, we then asked them that exact same question. Instead of who do you primarily expect, we said, who primarily influenced you more academically? And you can see the students relied very heavily on their parents and their family members. And then we asked another question. If you had an academic related issue or concern, who would you primarily expect to seek counsel from? Again, pre-college, it was heavily towards the faculty and instructor. And again, parents and family members, right around 18%. And then no surprise, I think you know where we're heading with this. After the first semester, we asked them who, if you had an academic related issue or concern, who did you seek counsel from? And it was still parents and family members. So when we started to see these, we said, okay, if the students are still really working and communicating and looking for advice and counsel from parents and family members, we want to make sure we provide that support for our parents and family members. So that's when you started to see the growth in our parent and family programs here on campus and sessions, for example, like this. So with that, then let's go ahead and transition to what do you need to know right now, okay? And just so you know, just in case you may not know, tomorrow is the last day of fall classes. It's amazing how fast, especially in this pandemic world we're in right now, how time is an illusion. It seems like we were just welcoming students at convocation here in August, and within the blink of an eye, they are wrapping up their fall semester. So again, a little bit of context here. We are finishing up that fall semester, which means that next week is final exams. And we're going to talk a little bit later about the stresses that come with final exams and kind of where your student's mind may be as they head into the final day of classes, and then obviously heading into finals week. But again, finals week is next week. The deadline for grade submission. So these are going to be the deadline for final grades. So after they've completed their finals, their faculty will start going into my NKU and putting their final grade in that my NKU for the fall. Okay. The deadline for faculty to put in that final grade is on December 21st. I believe it's a Tuesday at 9 a.m. So by 9 a.m. on December 21st, all students will be able to get in there and see their final grades and what their cumulative GPA is. So again, we wanted to share that date with you because that's a good time to also kind of check in and ask your students how they did during the fall semester. And again, we'll get to what some of those questions could look like and some of those conversational points here in just a little bit. January 10th is when spring classes begin. So your students do get a little bit over 3 weeks of a break. And then another thing that we'll talk a little bit about that I think is a really important date, it seems like it's a very long time away, but really it's only about 5 weeks away, is that when a student begins on January 10th and those spring classes begin, on about 7 days later, a little over a week, students have the opportunity to drop any of their courses, 1 course, 2 course, whatever it may be, at 100% tuition adjustment, meaning they can drop that course and not be charged tuition. They'll get that charge directly back on their account. So again, it allows a student, maybe if they go in on the first couple of days of class during that week of January 10th and realize, wait, this isn't the class I think is going to be benefiting me, or this isn't the class I think I need to do as it relates to my career interests, they can drop it with no tuition penalty at all and actually pick up another course to fill in to make sure that they have their full tuition, or I'm sorry, their full course package of 12 or 15 credit hours for that semester. And the reason I wanted to then kind of bring this into context is, so NKU is going to be on winter break. Now, NKU is never really quote unquote closed, but we will be on break with limited office hours, which I'm going to share with you here in a couple of slides. But it also brings a little bit of context that once your students complete their final exams on December 17th, and then classes don't start back up till January 10th, that 3.5 weeks or 3 weeks or so, it's not only going to fly by very quickly, but if you think about it, for the last 16 weeks, your students have been either in class, studying for class, or been involved in some type of communication or involvement in NKU, both inside and outside the classroom, for just about every single day for 16 straight weeks. And then all of a sudden they're going to get a much needed break. But what we find though, is during that 3-week break, we find a lot of students start to disconnect from the university or really their courses, especially if they were really struggling with their courses. And even if they were, still thinking about continuing on and going to continue taking courses in the spring, a lot of times students may get that mindset of, if that's how the first fall semester is going to be, how am I going to do the next 7 semesters to get to graduation? And so that mindset starts to play a little bit during the winter break. And so I'm going to share with you here in a couple slides some things you can talk about and some things that are going through your students' mind. But it's really important to kind of think about that, because these students are going to go from really intense 16 weeks of being involved in their classes to this break. And if you do something for every single day for 16 weeks and then stop for 3 days, you can start to disconnect, which is obviously what we don't want to happen with your students. So as we head into the close of the fall semester, nearly all your students have either had an academic advising, are going through an academic advising, or have an academic advising appointment coming up here in the next week or so. So I just want to provide a little bit of context, what took place in that advising appointment, so you can have a little bit of understanding of some of those conversations. And really, it also is your student may be thinking about picking up a course, dropping a course. It gives you an idea of who you need to connect them with and why it's important that we get the academic advisor involved to keep them, again, on this path towards a degree. So students were invited to meet with their advisor as early as September. So a lot of students, even though we started right in August, will have started meeting with their advisors once or maybe even a couple of times through the fall semester. Every first-year student was required to meet with their academic advisor before they could register for classes. Most of those were done over virtual appointment, some of them in person. It all depended on what your student wanted to do, but they had the option to do both. So really, the time they spend with an advisor could be anywhere from 20 minutes up to an hour. And what advisors are doing is they're really reviewing that student's academic plan, as well as the program requirements, to make sure that the courses that the students are taking align with the degree requirements for their major. And that's really critical. Of course, if a student wants to take an additional course that maybe falls out of what they need, we'll obviously encourage that. But from an affordability standpoint and a financial responsibility standpoint, we want to make sure students are very much aware that for the 120 credit hours that they need to graduate, every additional course they take outside that is an additional expense. And so we want to make sure the students are well aware of that. So we want to make sure they're selecting courses that align to the 120 credit hours they need to graduate. Now, the advisor is also taking that time to really just kind of check in with the student. You know, it's kind of that one-on-one, just kind of sitting down and saying, all right, we got everything in your registration cart. You're ready to register. How are you doing? How are classes? Are you getting involved in student organizations? From a financial standpoint, how are your scholarships and your financial aid aligning up? So they do kind of get a little bit more in depth aside from just the academic side of the advising. They really are doing a check-in to see how your students are. And from there, they can gauge if they need additional support, or if the student says, hey, I'm really struggling in Latin over here, well, we'll get them then, make a recommendation to get them to a Latin tutor. So that's why it's really important. We like to have that touch point for our students, especially early on during the fall semester. So the reason I say all that, again, the majority of your students have met with their academic advisor, but if your student has not scheduled an appointment, now's the time to do so. I strongly recommend that they do it before winter break. It's kind of that ease of mind going into winter break that you know that your spring courses are taken care of, everything's solidified, you don't have to worry about, do I need an additional course? Do I need to drop a course? Now, again, I'm going to share with you the winter break hours and how we can provide support during that time. And then students will have the week before classes to also meet with their advisor. I caution you that that week before the spring semester starts, so when we get back on January 3rd all the way through the 10th, it is very, very busy. A lot of students, make decisions over the winter break or wait till the last minute to make class adjustments. And so our advisors are very much swamped during that week. So that's why we really are, and your students have probably seen this in email from their academic advisors. If you need them now, now's the time to do so. And really what's nice is after they complete finals, they do have that week before we go into winter break where they can reach out. And so they'll have some downtime and they can reach out to their academic advisor if they need any assistance before the break. So while we're talking about winter break, I'm going to transition over to just an FYI for you and the winter break support that we provide. So again, while we are on winter break, the universities never close. We're here. And if you've heard our messaging around being a hybrid university, supporting students both in person and virtually, that's something that we took to heart, especially as we were thinking through when the university is on break for about 10 days, when can we make sure that they have the support they need in case questions arise during that break? So I know there's a lot on this screen. I highlighted under the title there, the winter break support. There's a website. You don't even really need to copy that down because starting in December, it's going to be the week of the 20th, I think it is, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's that Monday. There's going to be a banner across every single NKU webpage that provides all this information in the website that they'll be able to click in and see exactly where they can get that support. So again, I'm not going to get into too much detail here, but we do have a couple of days where we will be answering phones. So students at any point can call in with questions, concerns. If they forgot their password for their My NKU, we can help them provide support for that. So anything that they need, we really encourage students to, again, ask the question. Let us help you out. Don't wait the entire winter break to have your question answered. How can we help you now? And then you'll also see some of the emails that are open for some offices that will be responding to email. And if they're not responding to email, those emails go into a queue. And so what will happen is as advisors or other support staff, either during the winter break or right when they get back, they will start going through that queue and answering them as they come in. So again, the earlier they are seeking support, the earlier we can provide that support for them. So again, just because we're on winter break doesn't mean we're not here to support them. We are in a little bit of a limited capacity, but we are very excited that we're still able to provide that support, even in that limited capacity over that winter break. So important information as we head into next week. So what you can do now for final exams. And the big thing is don't hesitate or don't shy away from conversations with your students about exams. So encourage them if they are really struggling in a course, engage in these conversations maybe this weekend or even right now. Say, hey, I know exams are coming up. How are you doing? If you're struggling or there's a topic in a certain course that you're not just grasping as well as maybe you should, have you gone to Learning Plus to touch base with a tutor? Or if you've got an essay due for a final, have you had it checked by the Writing Center? Those offices are going to be fully staffed over the next day and then all of next week to provide that support, because we know those last minute questions come in. We're here to support them, so really encourage that. Maybe they're hesitant and don't want to go meet with a tutor or someone in the writing center. Encourage them to meet with their professors. The professors are going to have office hours. They're here all next week during exam week. So if a student needs clarification or has questions about maybe an exam review packet, have them reach out to a professor, either through email or in person. I mean, that's what they're there for. These are experts in their area who are passionate about teaching. And so if they have questions, that's what those professors are there to help support. So really encourage them to meet with their professors if possible. A lot of students really maybe struggle or don't like studying alone. And so we really encourage students to form a study group. It's okay to send an email or a text to other students in the course and say, hey, anybody interested in forming a group and studying this weekend? You would be shocked at how many students jump at that opportunity. I oversee a number of summer programs here on campus. Many of your students may have been in Summer Spark and the Summer Academy. And I hear all the time stories about how they're emailing and texting one another and kind of picking up like, hey, I'm taking Psych 101 as well. Do you want to study for this exam? And so those are some opportunities if they've made those connections, or when they're in their Canvas page and want to blast out a message to their students in that course. This is something that a lot of students like to jump on. So again, if you think, hey, a study group may be good for you as you're heading in the finals, really encourage them to do that. Now, again, if you think about it, if you when you were in grade school or high school or in college and you're heading towards a big test, you know that there's those nerves, right? I was actually talking with a student last semester when she was heading into her first set of exams and midterm exams, and we were sitting here talking, and she talked about how when she was handed an English exam, she got actually really kind of sick, almost felt like she was going to puke right then and there because the nerves got to her so much. And so you can only imagine then when your finals are coming and you've got no classes that week, but you may have 4 or 5 finals, how stressful that can be. Their stress level right now is probably the highest it's been the entire semester. And again, it's because of the compressed nature of how final exams are. For the most part, final exams can be a fairly large percentage of their grade for that course, similar to how it may have been in high school. And so they're really concerned and really stressed out about this. So one of the things that we really try to encourage parents, family members, or even friends of students is really to help the student get in that mindset that, you know, we want to motivate you. We want you to succeed as much as possible. And what we have found is if a student can get over that first hurdle and are motivated to get over that first hurdle, and they're able to realize how to do that, especially on their own or with support, those next couple hurdles that come their way, they know how to navigate it and are more successful. So that support from you is going to be critical. What we don't want, and what sometimes happens for students, is if on Monday they get their first exam, and let's say that exam was really, really hard, their mind goes to, is this how every exam is going to be for the week? And so that mindset can be really difficult for them to overcome. And so especially early on, if you know that their first exam's at 9 o'clock, you know, if you want to send them a text at 11, maybe when that exam period's over, or try to call them real quick, say how things are, see how things were going, I mean. And if they maybe struggled and said it was really difficult, you know, words of encouragement, you know, I'm sure you did fine. Or, you know, maybe you learned what worked well on that exam. Maybe we need to apply it for the other ones. Or maybe, hey, if you think you're going to be struggling in some others, let's make sure we get you in front of your professor. You know, those words of encouragement and the feeling that you've got their back is going to be really, really critical. We obviously are going to be sending positive words and kind of that sense of belonging for them, that we've got their support here as well. We'll be sending stuff over social media, and I know a lot of departments will send emails like wishing them good luck on exams. So that continuous message is really important for students. Again, I cannot reiterate how important it is to connect, not just you, but really encouraging your students to connect. If you feel like they could benefit from sitting in the library to study, encourage them to come on campus and study. If you think actually they do better sitting at the kitchen table, make sure all their brothers and sisters, take them out to eat while they're studying at the kitchen table by themselves, to give them that comfort space, because that's really, really important. Again, to try to relax them as much as possible, and knowing the stress levels they have. And I'll kind of end with this note. You've all been in that position, right? Words of encouragement, even if it's from your boss or your supervisor. Hey, that was a job well done, or I really love the report you did. I think it was fantastically and well written. Like those cheer you up, right? And so think of it the same way for our students. It's just those little nudges that are so important. And what we hear from our students, and I've shared this before, and I shared it in the first workshop we did, when we ask students after they cross the stage at graduation, shake hands with the president and get their diploma, they actually get a survey, and it just kind of is a survey. Hey, how did the 4 years here at NKU go? What are some recommendations? Who helped you basically succeed? And overwhelmingly, they said it was parents, family members, and friends that helped get them to that position. We continue to joke all the time, right? When my student went off to college, I turned their bedroom into a sewing room or into a man cave, right? But what we really realized, and we've known this now for decades, that students really still heavily rely on parents and family members. So as they're going through this week, if they commute to campus, jokingly, it's gotten cold, but it's going to get warmer this weekend. But, you walk the dog in the morning and realize it's 15 degrees, starting their car up and putting like a little note on their dashboard saying, hey, we're thinking about you, or hey, we know you got your stats final this morning. You've got this. That goes a long way. If you know that they had 2 exams that day and they were 2 of their hardest exams and they come home for dinner that night, ask them, hey, what do you want for dinner? We'll cook you. This is kind of your special day. You overcame those 2 exams. We want to put something in your belly that is going to kind of give you that comfort of being at home. Or if your students here on campus, simply sending them a little message, something in the mail. I know, right? Sending something in the mail. It seems like it's the 1920s, sending something, putting a stamp on something and putting it in the mail. But if they were to get it in their residence hall and they open it up and it just says, hey, we're thinking about you during exams, good luck. And you put a $10 bill in there and it says, get Chipotle on us, get your mind off exams, go to Chipotle. That'll go a mile with them. So just those small little things that you can think of. If they've got a favorite cookie, cook them that cookies and have it for them on Monday. I joke that when I wrote my dissertation many eons ago, my closest friend, he actually loved to bake, and my favorite dessert was baklava. And as I was heading into my comps and getting ready for my dissertation, that first day of comps, I opened up my front door and there was a giant box of baklava. And I went through an entire sheet of baklava for that week. That was my comfort food. It spoke volumes. And that's exactly what we're looking to do to give that encouragement to your students. So what can you do now and prep for over winter break? Again, you've heard me reiterate, just continue to talk to your student. Now, when we say this, a lot of students or a lot of parents and family members are like, well, what do we say to our students? What are some questions that, will help elicit some conversation? And these are the ones that we feel and have heard have worked. So fall grades posted. We know the date that they've posted. You can ask them, how'd you do? Now, some of your students are like, hey, that's just me. I don't, I'm an adult now. I don't need to tell you my grades. But we have found the majority of students, of course, want to engage with you. And if they perhaps maybe didn't perform like they thought they should, or their grades were lower than what they were hoping for, you can just turn that around and say, that was your first semester in college. It's okay. You've now seen how 16 weeks of college is going to look. Now you know how you can change it, and we'll think differently about how we can support you through the spring, and we'll get you connected in other ways. That's going to be critical. So just engaging in those conversations. Ask them, have they registered for spring classes? If you do that, they're like, oh, my parents or family members are interested in what I'm taking in the spring, and ask them those questions. Ask them what their favorite part of fall was. Did they go and do paint wars? Did they go to the opening basketball game? What really connected them and what resonated with them? And then encourage them to keep doing those types of things. And then how are they preparing for what's next? And we're going to talk a couple slides. Again, you're looking at a semester right now in terms of one semester out of 8 to graduate if they're looking to graduate in 4 years. So this is just 1/8 of the puzzle. And so that can seem like a lot has just happened, and it can seem overwhelming to then head into the next 7 semesters. We want to take this one step at a time. And so just ask them, how are you thinking through? What are your small little goals coming up for the spring semester? And just have an open and honest dialogue with them. Encourage your students to engage whenever possible. Even if your student is taking all online classes, how are they getting involved even virtually? Either hanging out with other classmates, kind of checking in with other classmates. Our esports is huge on this campus. And so a lot of students just even go on to Twitch and watch other NKU students compete in these esports. But that's a sense of community. They're chatting with one another through Twitch. And so even if it's virtually, they're still making those connections, because what we have found is they make those connections, even if it's just one outside of classes, they feel really connected in that sense of belonging. And when you're invested, just like you would be in your daily life, if you're on the bowling team, if you feel like there's a sense of connection there, then you're looking forward to going to the bowling team and going bowling. It's the same way with college. When you make that connection, you're looking forward to doing those types of things, and then you get more involved and are more invested. This is actually something that is somewhat new that we continue to tell parents because it's an awkward conversation. It can be because students aren't really thinking right now during their first semester what my career is going to be. A lot of students may be undeclared or undecided right now. But now's actually a really good time to have a conversation around, okay, you just completed 12 or 15 credit hours during the fall. Did any of those classes speak to your interests in terms of what you're thinking about doing a career? Or the flip of that, let's say they're in an accounting major and they took 2 accounting courses. Was accounting what they're looking to do? Because if the student's like, these 2 courses, I don't see myself spending the rest of my life doing this. That's the conversation now that we want to get them with an advisor and start thinking through a major change. Because now's the time to do so. The majority of students will change their major at least once. It's more than 50% of our students will change their major at least once. And so changing your major is okay. We want to think about that now rather than in their senior year when they realize, oh, I don't want to be an accountant. So now I'm going to go switch to visual arts. And then we've added more credit hours and more time and obviously more money to complete that degree. So now's the time to just kind of, hey, what are your general interests and are the courses you're taking and your general interest aligning with your career interests? And again, if your student needs help, don't wait. Contact us over winter break. Check out the winter break website. Now's the time to do that. We don't want to wait for the first day of classes. If they have questions, need help, we want to do that now. And I'll end on this. So we really cannot stress this enough. Help empower your student. Students, again, the college experience is a new experience, and they're going to have hills and obstacles that they need to get over. We want our students to fail with us here so that they know how to overcome those obstacles and know how to overcome those failures rather than it happening for the first time in the workforce. So I tell my students all the time, I'd rather you fail with me in this course so that we can learn how to overcome where you failed, so that when you go out and you're competitive in the workforce, you're ready and can strive there. So again, failure it's an okay thing. It really is. It's how you learn to overcome it is where we want to work with you as a community to help your student overcome those things. So not every student's going to walk away after finals with a 4.0. And so if your student did get a GPA that, again, they weren't anticipating, how do we overcome? How do we motivate? How do we empower your student? If you know your student really was a student that needed tutoring and needed to seek help and they just didn't do it, how do we empower them that it's okay? Actually, the students who are going to tutoring are continuing to go to tutoring because they found the benefit from it. It's not a student who may be struggling all the time and that's why they're going to tutoring. It's not like you're going to the principal's office. You're not in trouble if you're going to tutoring. The reason people use the writing center and tutoring is because they're getting the help and their grades are reflected in that help. Next, again, we talked a little bit about the students need that one additional touch point on campus outside the classroom. So again, continue to ask them. Maybe you wanted to get through the first semester and kind of make sure you understood how to navigate through and you didn't want to get into a student organization or get involved with esports or attend an athletic event. Now's the time to do so as you head into spring or even over the winter break. Bring them on campus and come to a women's or men's basketball game. Just keep them connected because that is so critically important for not only their academics, but for their well-being and their personal development as they head towards professional development. And again, classes are each day. But graduation is 4 years away. We talked about, again, they just completed 1 out of 8 semesters. So how is your student motivating themselves from this point forward? And so I'll end on this. I know right now, on a Thursday evening, the last thing you want to do is a math equation, but this math equation is really important because not only does it help keep the conversation with your student on point towards graduation, it actually can save you some money. So again, as we talked about a little bit earlier, NKU requires 120 earned credit hours to graduate with a bachelor's degree. So if your student is looking to graduate in 4 years, they need an average of 30 earned credit hours per academic year or 15 earned credit hours per semester, which is what we call 15 to finish. So now that your student's going to be completing the fall semester, ask them, how many courses did you pass and how many credit hours did you earn? Because if they're sitting at 15 credit hours right now and they're registered for 15 credit hours in the spring, they've got their 30 credit hours. They're on what we call a timely progression towards a degree. If let's say they had 12 credit hours this semester, you know that they're technically 3 short for trying to get the 30 in the academic year. So are they taking maybe 17 credit hours next spring and now they're 1 credit hour short? So are they going to take a summer course to make sure they caught up with that? Now, of course, many of your students were bringing in pre-college credits, either from the school-based scholars or from AP credits. Obviously, those are applied to the 120 and you'll have to factor those in. but it's always good to make sure you're having conversations with your students that after the first semester, or after the first year, are they on this timely progression towards a degree? Because the quicker they graduate, the less credit hours they'll need later, the less they're having to register for additional classes to make up, and the more money they're saving on the back end. It's the way to kind of look at that. All righty. So with that, we'll head into our discussion Q&A. While we're in our discussion Q&A, I'm going to go ahead and throw this up. This is all our advising centers. And so if any of your students have questions about spring registration, about a course that they have for spring that they maybe want to take in addition to what they're already taking, or they want to drop or swap a class, this is the contact that you'll want to contact. This will obviously, we're going to be sharing this out, but if you want to just pull out your phones and take a quick photo of this, specifically for the college that your student is in, go ahead and do so. If your student is undeclared or undecided right now, they're in all likelihood in Norse advising. So go ahead and take a photo there. Again, we'll be sharing this out, and so you'll be able to see this, but again, I'll leave it up for a few more seconds as we head into our question and answer session. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing here so I can see the questions that are coming in. So I will kind of warn everybody, I know enough to be dangerous about campus. So feel free to ask any questions you have. If you have a very targeted question or a very specific question that I unfortunately don't have the answer for at this time, it could be with regards to housing dates or move in and move out during winter break. I don't have that information, and we'll make sure we get you the contact for housing so you know where that is. If you have a specific question about a scholarship or a financial aid package you have, that's very specific to a student. And so I would have to log into their account, and we'd want to work with our financial aid coordinators to make sure we get them the most robust response to that question. But if you have general questions at all, or questions about, you know, how do I talk to my student, or what are some other recommendations you may have, now is the time to ask. We've got about 15 minutes or so, and I'm happy to field any questions that come in. And Britta, am I correct on seeing on my side chat? I don't see any questions, at least at this time. Am I correct on that? I just want to make sure I'm seeing what you're seeing.
Yes, that's correct. Perfect. But we did have a question come in on the question and answer.
Oh, perfect. I can open that up as well. Did the app for student engagement on campus launch? So I'm assuming you mean there's a couple of things. So we've got the actual website where students can go in and look at student organizations through that website. But if I'm assuming the app, and Britta, if you want to jump in as well on this one, I'm assuming it's an app on the phone. I am unaware of the new app, and I'm excited to actually learn about this new app for student engagement. Britta, are you aware of anything at this time?
I am. I can't answer the question, unfortunately, but we are, the Office of Student Engagement is launching something called Victor eCoins, and they went through a soft launch with that program earlier this semester. So your students can, it's my understanding, they can use their phone to scan into certain activities on campus. They'll be able to accumulate points, which they can then redeem for some really nice prizes. Don't quote me on this, but I think things like even maybe a parking pass are some of the bigger prizes that are coming out. But I can research that and send that information out once I have the answer.
Excellent. Thank you, Britta. Other questions? I joke with our students all the time that good pedagogy within a classroom, not only just in college, but in high school as well, that when a faculty member presents the content, it takes about 30 seconds in terms of cognitive research. It takes about 30 seconds for students and others to kind of gather that information in their brain and ask a question. So I knew I threw a lot at you. So there's always that 30 seconds of awkward silence as you're waiting for questions to come in. So I apologize for that. You don't want me singing or dancing to entertain during that quiet time. I promise you, you don't want that. But I'm happy to wait around and answer any questions that do come up. Again, I'll also really encourage over the winter break, or even from this point forward, your students have free access to all athletic events, so they can get into men's and women's basketball games for free just with their student ID. So I'll actually be traveling to Bloomington, Indiana to watch our Norse play the Hoosiers here on December 22nd, I think it is. I'm excited to see them play in Assembly Hall. So, all right, so let me go to the Q&A, and then I see a couple come in through the chat. When students are reluctant to talk to an advisor, what are some tips to make this happen? The biggest thing, the first thing I would say is, if I was talking to your student, is, do they like to talk in person, or would they prefer to do it over a virtual Zoom or a phone call? We know a lot of students just, maybe are a little bit more introverted and can be a little intimidated sitting across the desk from their advisor. And so to break down those walls, we do now phone and Zoom or not interviews, but appointments. So that's the first thing. The other big thing is what we really try to stress to students is that the advisor is basically their biggest level of support in addition to their faculty here on campus. Their advisor is basically advocating for them with whatever they need. So we really try to see that as kind of like a collaborative relationship and partnership as we're going through. So it's the advisor that they're going to go through to make sure, hey, from a degree audit, do I have all the courses I need? Hey, if I've got this, for example, the student app, student engagement app, if I'm looking at the Victor eCoins coming up, how do I get involved with that? They're the ones that have that training. And so they really are kind of an advocate for your students. So just trying to even get them in with a 5 or 10 minutes just to kind of drop in and say, hey. The other thing that they can do is many of our colleges and many of the advising centers have peer leaders and peer coaches within their advising centers. So maybe if perhaps they don't want to meet with their professional advisor, they want to meet with a student advisor and just maybe feel more comfortable peer to peer. The peer will kind of help them navigate from a student perspective, and then can also refer them to the advisor so that there's kind of that bridge and gateway to start those conversations. So that's another thing you'll be able to request if they want to meet with a peer coach or a peer advisor. What if your child doesn't think they need support? Fantastic question. I would say regardless, and I have one of those college students right now who is super independent and turned 18 and basically could live on his own with no problems whatsoever. They may not think they need support, but with my targeted questions, I make it very clear that they do need support. So you can ask your students, even just, hey, did you register for courses? And even if your student's saying yes, there's going to be somewhere in there through your conversations where you're going to see, oh, have you thought about this additional support? Or even just just going to them and saying, have you met with your academic advisor, or have you met with someone in student engagement? They're kind of going to look at you and go, oh, you obviously have heard about this. And they might even jump in and start having that conversation with you. Even if they don't think they need it, at some point they will. I can't imagine going through 4 years of college or any part of life in the workforce and not needing some type of help or professional development. They're going to need support when they're creating a resume or a letter of not a letter of recommendation, but their cover letter for their first job. Those are things they're going to need help and support with. So they're out there. It's just a matter of engaging with your students in that conversation and really making sure that you're there to help make those connections if need be. When will the spring semester bills be posted? I know you probably have, if they've registered for courses, you probably see some of those holds on your bills right now. But if I'm not mistaken, I think it'll probably start to take effect within the next week or so, if you haven't seen that already. So those will usually post before or during the winter break. I'm almost positive it's before, because I know they don't want to head into winter break with some of those outstanding things. So I'd probably be on the lookout for that. But as they've registered for courses, you should start seeing some placeholders on your bill. What happens if a student does not meet minimum academic requirements for a scholarship at the end of the first semester? For example, if they get a 2.4 and a 2.5, this is a fantastic question. So the way both institutional aid and federal aid and scholarships as well, is developed is that the summer semester is a trailer. And what I mean by that is when they look at applying aid, it goes fall, winter, spring, and summer. So a lot of the times when we see students that fall just shy of those requirements, we strongly encourage them to look at summer courses, even if it's a 5-week or 7-week course. And we will work with them. I don't want to speak too much at this time about it because we're rolling it out and doing final logistics. I mean, it's what we've been doing over the last few weeks, but we're going to be rolling out a very robust summer program that's going to allow your students to not only engage in these courses, but have the opportunity to engage in some other things as well to help them get over their degree requirements, if it's a GPA or a credit hour. So be on the lookout for that as we make that announcement out in January. But even as if they're heading out of the spring and they're still a little bit short of those requirements, we still provide things during the summer to make sure that they have an opportunity to overcome that. When will campus rec be open during winter break? That is a fantastic question as well. They do post their schedule hours on the main campus rec website. So we could probably pull it up real quick here. But I'm sure as they're heading towards winter break, they will post those because I do know, I'm hoping I'm not wrong on this, but I'm almost positive they have it open because I know they do because we went swimming the one winter break. So yeah, getting out of a pool and then walking out in the snow never made any sense, but we did it that one year. So Britta, you're nodding your head.
I posted the link for the winter hours in the chat for everyone to see.
That's why Britta's the best at what she does. All righty. So students move out of the dorm over Christmas break. Sorry, yes. There are certain exceptions specifically for our international students that housing is available for them over winter break. But basically, yes, they will go through kind of a close down and they have to be out of the dorms by a certain date. They lock their doors, everything stays in there. Obviously, they can take anything with them. And then they can move back in on a certain date. I would imagine at this time, housing has already communicated everything to those students. I would highly encourage them to check email. Britta, if you don't mind, can you please post in the chat for us or the Q&A the link to the main housing website that'll allow them to go, because you'll start to see that on their banner or on their front page. Those should have their winter hours as well as move in and move out. Thank you, Britta. You guys are asking fantastic questions. You all are pros at this already. All right, I got about 2 or 3 minutes. I'm happy to answer any other questions whatsoever. It's crazy. We went from students wearing gloves, hats, giant parkas on campus. What was that, Tuesday? I think it was, when it snowed like that. Tomorrow, everybody's going to be in shorts and t-shirts. Crazy weather we're having here on campus. All right. Britta, do you have any other final things that you would like to share? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but after everything that we've kind of shared and some of the questions coming in, do you have anything? If not, that's completely fine.
Sure. I just don't know the date that I'm getting ready to announce, so you may be able to back me up on this. We do have homecoming coming up on our campus. It's a week-long event for our students. You all are welcome to participate as well. But during the homecoming game on a Saturday, we do host a family royal reception. So if you are in town and you want to stop by, we are located in Party Suite B, and we'll get some information posted on our Facebook and social media accounts. Stop by, you can have some desserts with us. We'll probably have a photo booth, that sort of thing. And then we're also going to host a silent auction that will benefit the lending library. So you'll have an opportunity to bid on some gift baskets and unique items to help support a really great cause.
Yes. And you get fed too. The desserts are amazing during that parent reception. So they kind of really do spoil you. In addition to the auction and the free food and everything, you're sitting in a suite and watching the game as if you were the CEO of Amazon or something. The suites over there are fantastic. So and then it's really the opportunity to get to meet with other parents and other family members and get to go in and out as you want. And the president and others stop by and kind of greet our guests. So it's just a really cool opportunity if you have the opportunity to attend. And that game tends to be pretty much at capacity, and there's all things kind of going on. You've got homecoming kind of announcements and other things that would take place during halftime. It's just kind of a fun event. So Larry asked a very great question around what's the minimum grade a student can get. And so this is where this gets a little tricky, is that some courses it's a C-, and others it could be a little bit of a different grade. And so I would strongly recommend, you'll see that in their syllabus. Each student, when they start their class, they will have the syllabus in there in terms of the minimum requirements for those classes and what the GPA, the GPA requirements and how that aligns to certain grades. And so while some it may be a C- and others it could potentially be a D, it does vary for each class, so that gets a little bit tricky to answer. Yeah, I wish I could give you a little bit more of a specific answer on that, but it does vary. But we will follow up with maybe a little bit more targeted. Maybe we'll have the registrar write up a quick kind of response to what that is, because I think that's important in terms of what you see, how each of the grades equates to a certain GPA requirement. Okay. And with that, we have hit 6:45, and I always want to make sure we respect everybody's time. Yes, thank you to everybody who's saying thank you. We really do enjoy doing these. It's the opportunity to get to talk with you and provide you with as much information as possible. And the one thing I will conclude with is we really like this to be a two-way street. Obviously, we're here to support your student. That's what we do. That's why every single one of us on this campus got into what we do, because it's all about helping students transition from college into the workforce and providing support for their personal and professional development. It's what we love to do every single day. But at the same time, please feel free to come to us with questions, concerns. We're here to also support you. So we do see this as a relationship and a partnership in helping support your student. So never hesitate to contact anybody here at the university. Contact Britta through family programs. We are here to be your advocate and to help support your student as they head towards graduation. And so with that, we will conclude this section. I want to say thank you to everybody. Enjoy your holidays. Please take time spending it with family. Make sure you're getting a break for yourselves and enjoy the time with your student as they head back to home for the holiday break. And we'll see everybody hopefully in the spring at our next parent workshop. Thank you and take care.